Islam was on my mind after just having returned from Turkiye. That's Tur, Ki, Ye, with an emphasis on the first syllable. So they want it to be called now, which is what it was called ever since about 1923. And I've always wanted to visit there, as it's one of the cradles of civilization. Some of the oldest cities in the world that they continue to find are located in Turkiye. The Turks and Greeks have been sparring with each other since the walls of Troy stood. The Turkish Empire controlled much of Southeast Europe, Western Asia, and Northern Africa between the 14th and early 20th centuries, actually, quite recently. The empire also controlled an eastern region of Central Europe from the 16th to the late 17th century. The height of the Turkish Empire power was in the 16th century under Sultan Suleiman, and that magnificent. So look at that. They controlled an area about the size of the Roman Empire almost at their height. Turkey is in the European Union and had been nudging towards a more secular state for a long time until recently. Under President Erdogan, the state has become more fundamentalist and totalitarian. Turkey is 99% Muslim, according to a US study from 2022. I heard different statistics quoted while I was there. It was a little bit less. Many Western-style freedoms of expression have now become less tolerated, as we found out. The cultural experience in Turkey was not altogether positive, and I'm sure even less so for my wife, Terry. Learning about this history made me curious to learn more, but I'll admit to a serious lacuna concerning Islam and Muslim practices. So a couple of weeks ago, I ordered 2 books after reading about the author: Concise Guide to the Quran, which I'm going to talk a little bit about today, not the whole book, and A Concise Guide to the Life of Muhammad, both by the same person, Ayman S. Ibrahim. The books written by Mr. Ibrahim is a resource for non-Muslims seeking to understand the Quran and the life of Muhammad in light of Islamic tradition and critical academic scholarship. Mr. Ibrahim was born in Egypt, speaks Arabic, his native language, and English, and is a practicing Coptic Christian. He holds a PhD from Fuller Theological Seminary and from Haifa University. He's a professor of Islamic Studies and director of the Center for Christian Understanding of Islam at the Southern Baptist Theological Seminary. I'm about 7/8 of the way through A Concise Guide to the Quran and want to describe how Muslims consider the Quran. Most Muslims consider the 1924 Cairo edition of the Quran to be identical to the 7th century Quran as revised by Uthman, which they also consider to be identical to an inimitable copy of the Quran that exists in heaven. Here's a quote from the book I've just about finished. I didn't know many of these things. Muslims believe the Quran was in heaven with Allah until it was communicated to Muhammad during the 7th century, over a period of 23 years. The revelations that Muhammad received are the exact words, this is what is believed by most Muslims, exact words found in a well-guarded celestial tablet. These revelations were preserved, protected, and kept in what the Quran calls the mother of the book, which refers to the source, core, or essence of the revelations that Muhammad received. By the way, Muhammad was an illiterate man, so he received these revelations and then dictated them to scribes, which wrote them down on whatever was available at the time. They didn't have paper at that point. They believe that these revelations were a dictation process during which Allah controlled every word and letter, not only as they reached Muhammad, who was not literate, but also as they were transcribed to the early Muslims. The Quran has only one author, Allah. Muhammad proclaimed the revelations which were perfectly preserved with no editing or change, either during his lifetime or after his death. No human influence occurred at any point in the history of the Quran. These are beliefs, this is not factual. These revelations were somehow transcribed into book form and is now the book is known as the Quran. Traditional Muslim beliefs seems to portray the Quranic text as a book dropped from heaven. Although it took decades for the proclamations to reach Muhammad, 23 years, and although the proclamations were not immediately transcribed, Muslims are unwilling to entertain any possibility of changes or edits to the text. They believe that it was perfectly preserved, unlike other pre-Islamic revelations, including those of the Bible. While Muslims generally believe that the essence of all monotheistic religions is the same, that would be people of the book, which would be Christians and Jews, and also Muslims. They still view the Quran as the only perfectly preserved book. They believe it is superior to previous scriptures, which have been distorted. The prevalent viewpoint is not held by all Muslims. However, posing rhetorical questions or examining the history of the Quran is a topic that is very discomforting for conservative Muslims, less so for educated and progressive Muslims. For conservative Muslims, any attempt to critically assess the process of compiling the Quran since the 7th century or to question the possibility of redaction is considered an attack against the word of Allah. This is a huge offense. So to review, for most Muslims, the Quran records the exact words of Allah. It is without error and totally infallible. It is the last divine revelation given by Allah to mankind, humankind. It surpasses and replaces all previous divine revelations, including those found in the Bible. Most Muslims believe that the Quran we have in our hands today came down from heaven as a verbal revelation from Allah to his prophet Muhammad through the archangel Gabriel over the course of 23 years. The notion of a literal inspiration with no human influence is central to the Muslim belief regarding the Quran. The Quranic text, Muslims say, is the written document of a pre-existing text that has eternally existed in heaven, called the preserved celestial tablet, Allah al-Mahfuz. This celestial tablet contains the exact Arabic words as found in today's Quran. Muslim past and present share this belief with some variations. The celestial tablet is on the right side of the divine throne, above the 7th heaven, preserved and protected from errors caused by devils. Why do Muslims react so strongly to the desecration of the physical Quran? They value, and this is different, they value highly respect the paper copy itself. This is very different from the Christian treatment of the Bible. Although Christians honor their copies of the Bible, for them it is the content. Muslims relate to and treat the Quran differently. Muslims never place the Quran on the floor because doing so is dishonoring and shameful. Muslims often kiss the Quran. They put it on their heads to honor it and seek blessings. Usually Muslims wash their hands before touching the Quran. Some even perform ablution before touching the Quran. Muslims consider the physical Quran as a tangible manifestation of the divine. The materiality of the Quran symbolizes a bridge between the spiritual and the physical world. For these reasons, burning or otherwise desecrating the Quran is blasphemous, an offense to Allah and all Muslims. In Matthew 24:35, Christ's words reflect the Christian emphasis on the message. what is deserving of reverence over all else. Perhaps revealingly, Christ is referred to as the prophet of the word in the Quran. Heaven and earth will pass away, but my words will not pass away. Let us be respectful of the practices and beliefs of others. This is what will bring about harmony and lessen strife.